Welcome back to another episode of Dakota Digs. Today, we're diving into a powerful and often discussed topic, prayer warriors. What does it mean to be a prayer warrior, and does the Bible even talk about them? We'll explore the most notable prayer warriors in Scripture, ask whether women are more often seen as prayer warriors than men, and most importantly, how we can be prayer warriors in today's world. So let's get into it. So to start, we have to ask ourselves a key question. Does the Bible actually use the words prayer warrior? Right? We hear that a lot in church lingo. The short answer is no, it does not. The Bible doesn't specifically use a term or give a formal definition for it. However, the concept of someone who engages in deep, persistent, and powerful prayer on behalf of others is seen throughout Scripture. Being a prayer warrior is about spiritual warfare, fighting battles not with physical weapons, but with prayer, as Ephesians chapter 6, 12 through 18 describes. So while the term prayer warrior isn't written in the text per se, the idea of battling through prayer is definitely biblical. Now that we know the term isn't directly mentioned, let's look at some notable figures who embodied the spirit of a prayer warrior so you guys can get a better idea. For example, Moses, right? He prayed persistently during Israel's battles, and his prayers were key to their victory. And you can find that in Exodus chapter 17, 11 through 13. And you can also find Daniel, who prayed 3 times a day, even when it could have cost his life, really, showing his commitment to intercession. And you can find that in Daniel chapter 6, specifically verse 10. And of course, Hannah, who prayed earnestly for a child and was rewarded with the birth of Samuel. You can find that in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 10 through 20. But these are just 3 examples of people who fought spiritual battles on their knees. You can find so much more in the Bible, but those are just 3 examples. And it kind of makes you question whether women were more often seen as prayer warriors. I've always wondered that. And honestly, the Bible gives us examples of both men and women. And that's why I had mentioned the ones that I did, because I don't want people thinking that it is based solely on a gender, right? There are examples of both men and women who prayed with intensity in the Bible. Deborah, right? She was a prophetess who led Israel into battle and prayed for victory. Judges chapter 4, verse 14. And you also have David, who was a king and a warrior and wrote many of Psalms, which are essentially prayers to God. So both men and women have been called to stand in the gap in prayer. The ability to be a prayer warrior isn't about gender, as I said before, but it's about your dedication and your faithfulness in seeking God. Being a true prayer warrior is about engaging in the spiritual battles that happen in the unseen world. So a lot of people kind of get confused, like, okay, well, what does it mean to be a prayer warrior? Well, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 tells us that our struggles aren't against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and powers of darkness. So there was a book that I read. I'm so grateful that I read it, and I would recommend this book to you guys. It's called This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. And I would recommend this book to those who still need more understanding on the unseen world or spiritual warfare and how that relates to today, and what that means. Because I think that this book defines that pretty well. A prayer warrior is someone who continually intercedes, fights against these forces, and lifts up others before God in prayer, right? It's about persistence, like Jesus modeled when he prayed all night before choosing his disciples. Find that in Luke chapter 6, verse 12. And it's about standing in faith, knowing that prayer is our most powerful weapon. It is the most powerful weapon that we have. So that begs the question, how can we be prayer warriors in today's age? In today's age, it's really easy to get distracted, but being a prayer warrior means setting aside time to intentionally pray. This is another thing another concept that I brought up when it came to fasting, right? It's all about the intent. When you go to intentionally fast, intentionally pray, you don't need to be in a church or a formal setting. Prayer warriors can pray anywhere, like your bedroom, your closet, even the shower, right? You can pray anywhere. You can pray in your car. But whether you're praying for a loved one, for your community, or for, things that are happening in the world, you can be a part of God's spiritual army by lifting up these needs. Prayer isn't a last resort, which most people do use it as. And that is also fine, because prayer doesn't have a time frame on it. But it should be our first line of defense. For example, when I get in the car, I say a quick prayer. Why? Because I don't know what's going to happen a minute, 10 minutes, 20 minutes down the road, pun intended. I'm not sure. There could be a bad accident. It could be a crazy person. Somebody could be drinking and driving. You never know. And so as your first line of defense, you go ahead and pray, and ask God to cover you, right? So that's just an example. But in a world that is filled with anxiety and challenges and spiritual battles, it is important that we have prayer warriors and we become prayer warriors, because we need it more than ever. So to conclude, while the Bible may not use the specific term prayer warrior, a lot of people say it's church lingo, the concept itself is still deeply biblical. Men and women alike have fought spiritual battles through persistent, powerful prayer. Being a prayer warrior means standing firm in faith, interceding for others, and trusting that God hears and answers. I hope this episode has encouraged you to step into that role in your own life. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into the Word. And as always, keep on digging.